people start to turn it around.
If we all could love one another, all the world could be as one. Just take time to love one another, all the world could be as one. Black man, white man, standing together, no more fighting to be done. Yellow, red man, dancing together, all the world could be as one.
And welcome to Heal DC. This is Joni, and we have a very important and I would say exciting show in store for you today, although we're going to be talking about the ongoing genocide in Gaza, but we're going to be speaking about it from the perspective of the many organizations and people who are stepping up, including this very week, to stop this genocide. And I'll say more in a moment, but I just also wanted to give a tribute to a beautiful soul that we lost on Friday, Reuben Jackson, who was a poet and a musicologist, heard on Sundays. And yesterday there was a beautiful tribute to him from 4 to 6 with Miles Davis and Jim Byers. I urge every one of you who knew him to check that beautiful show out. Today we are in the last Monday of our pledge drive. We have a goal of $800, and we have some fabulous gifts to offer you. But let me just say, in a moment we'll introduce our guests. We have 5 guests on today. We're definitely going to be hearing from all of them. And out of the 5, we have 3 Palestinian activists, 1 Rabbi, and Graylan Hagler, which I'm glad to introduce Graylan Hagler as the creator of an organization called Faith Strategies. And we'll welcome Graylan on in a moment. But I want to just share the gifts that we have for you today. We have, last week, for those of you who heard us, we had Ayanna Gregory on for the hour, singing that powerful song, Ceasefire, which we're going to hear a little bit of it in a moment. Ayanna has generously donated 3 CDs, which we are offering in a package that you can make a pledge for $89.30 and get all 3 CDs, and they include a children's album, and I'm looking for my notes, oh dear. Let's see, a children's album, an album that she did in honor of her dad, and also a CD that she did in honor of her mom. We are also offering the Harriet's Wildest Dreams T-shirts, and we're offering this week at a discounted price. For $50, you can get them. They're available in all sizes. And so to do that, you need to call 202-588-9739. And later on in the program, we are going to be hearing about a special Palestinian book that one of our wonderful guests has managed to get donated for us. But with that, we're ready to roll now. And let's hear a little bit, Mikey, of the Ayanna Gregory singing Ceasefire now.
It's time for freedom and liberation. The time has come now for love and light to win. It's time for humankind to really, really live again.
Okay, and we know we have a lot of work to do to make that vision that Ayanna sings about happen, and we have the very people who are going to help to change this world of ours. In this first segment, we're going to be talking with Graylan Hagler, who has a very important meeting coming up on Tuesday. We're also going to be, Graylan's going to be joined by Phil Farah, who is the Washington Alliance for Middle Peace co-founder and the Palestinian Christian Alliance for Peace. He's also been a guest on Democracy Now! Just in this past December, and we hope that Phil will become will join us again in the near future when we have a little more time. And we'll be joined by MIRANDA, who is an activist with the Palestinian Youth Movement for this first segment. But let's start with Graylan. Graylan, welcome. I'm so thankful that you can be with us. And, of course, we continue to hear horrific coming from Gaza, and you, as usual, are stepping up for the plate, saying that we must demand a ceasefire now, including right here in Washington, D.C. So welcome, and you can start with whatever you'd like to say, but definitely we want to hear about the important meeting tomorrow night. And welcome.
Thank you, Joni. It's good to be here. It's good to be here with everybody. And just want to lift up and invite people to our meeting tomorrow night, Tuesday, 7 p.m. at Plymouth Congregational Church, 5301 North Capitol Street. And basically, we're going to be organizing around an actions that we need to do to try to convince the D.C. Council to move on things, to create and pass a resolution on a ceasefire and humanitarian aid, but not only to stop there, but to focus at other councils, governmental councils in the DMV, to get them to do the same thing. All across the country, city councils are passing resolutions demanding a ceasefire, creating a groundswell out there, which, of course, politicians are trying to ignore, but the more and more it happens, the less it can be ignored. One of the things that happened not too long ago was in Minneapolis. They voted a resolution for a ceasefire, and the mayor vetoed it. But the council turned around and overrode the mayor's veto, so that the mayor had to come out and explain why he tried to veto it in the first place. So it was really a strong issue, an issue that really showed that, one, that council was together. You can look at Chicago. The new black mayor in Chicago broke the tie in the Chicago City Council and got that passed. What we're advocating is to start with here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, to make a statement around saving lives and stopping war, a statement around humanitarian aid, reaching people who are right now the victims of war, just simply calling for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid. Just imagine, if people are against that, then what are they for? If they're against a ceasefire and humanitarian aid, then they must be for more war and more death. I don't think that we are there morally, ethically, consciously. We should be calling for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid. So we're going to be organizing Tuesday night, Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ, 7 p.m. at 5301 North Capitol Street, Northeast Washington, D.C., to create a mechanism and an ongoing movement that's going to press the case of bringing about a resolution and continuing to lift up our conscience around what is going on in Gaza.
Absolutely. And listeners, I want to see a lot of you there. I'm definitely going to be there, as well as a number of our guests who you'll be hearing from. And an extra boost will be, we have at least 2 singers, beautiful, powerful singers. Lucy Murphy is going to be there singing the song beautiful song called Palestine, together with the DC Black Workers singers, a chorus. And also Ayanna Gregory is going to be coming, and you will hear her sing the entire ceasefire song, a powerful 5-minute song. So we hope to see you again tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at Plymouth Congregational Church, right there in North Capitol Street. And I'm honored and pleased and thankful to welcome our next guest on. And Graylan's going to, of course, stay with us. I'm hoping that all of our guests can stay with us to make a final comment. But right now we're bringing in Phil Farah, who is the co-founder of the Palestinian Christian Alliance for Peace. And I'm honored to have met him in recent days. And welcome, Phil, Dr. Phil.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Joni. Thank you, Reverend Hagler, and thank you, WPFW. This is really like a rare voice of truth in this morass of mainstream media that is really not speaking truth to power. In fact, they are often parroting the lies that the Israeli propaganda machine perpetrates. And I'm a long time, I donate to WPFW. I have done so for many years, and I urge.
Well, we'll get to the urging of the donations, but let's hear a little bit about you. You have Palestinian roots. Tell us a little bit about you and your family and the urgency of now. What's going on if people listen to Democracy Now, just constant killing of children and people in the hospital, nurses. But you're playing a very critical role with the Palestinian Christian Alliance for Peace. So share with us a little bit about what we need to do and what you've been doing, which I know is a lot.
Yeah, I'm Palestinian. I was born and raised in Jerusalem. I immigrated at the age of 27 and to the U.S. But three of my grandparents are from Gaza, and I still have relatives in Gaza, and one of them actually was a victim of the genocide. Her name was Ilham Farah, an 84-year-old music teacher. She was taking refuge, like almost all the Palestinian Christian community in Gaza were taking shelter in two churches. It's a tiny community now. The Church of St. Porphyrius, which is the church where my father, aunts, and uncles and grandparents were baptized. That church was bombed by Israel. The compound was bombed, and 18 of the Christians sheltering there were killed, including some distant relatives. Ilham fortunately survived well. She moved to the other church where the rest of the community were sheltering, a Catholic church by the name of the Holy Family. And after 2 months of sheltering there, she just wanted to go home and take a shower. She just wanted to go home, and check on her house, take a shower. And while she was walking towards her house, an Israeli sniper shot her. Now, when an Israeli sniper shoots at an 84-year-old woman, you know what the message is. The message is that nobody is safe, whether they come from a church or whether they are 84 years old or a woman or a child or anything. So she bled for hours. Anybody who tried to come and pull her out was shot at, so nobody could reach her. The ambulances couldn't reach her because the Israelis were shooting all over the place, and the roads were bad anyway. Hard for ambulances to reach. So she bled for hours, and the next morning, an Israeli tank actually went over her body, and we don't know whether she was still alive or dead already. So this is the message that Israel is sending to the world and to the people of Gaza, that there is not a church. By the way, there were two other women who were killed in that Catholic church by Israeli snipers. Again, a sniper knows exactly who they're shooting at. And Israel also sent a rocket into that compound, and it has a shelter for disabled people, some of them on life support. And the generator was damaged and was no longer functioning. So, that's the kind of message that Israel sends to all the people of Gaza. No hospital is safe. No church is safe. No school, UNRWA schools are not safe. So many Palestinian doctors have been shot, sometimes by snipers inside their hospitals, inside the hospital. Doctors and nurses have been killed. Children, newborn babies on incubators have lost their life because Israel won't allow fuel into the hospitals. It's just an unbelievable genocide. And, the world is watching in plain sight. This is happening in plain sight of the whole world. And, so
Yes.
that's
Yes.
and my group, the Palestinian Christian Alliance for Peace, has been active for many years advocating for the rights of Palestinians. But we're doing what we can. But the ears of the administration, which is totally complicit in the genocide,
Absolutely.
are shut.
Absolutely. And we're very honored. I'm very honored to meet you, Dr. Philip Farah, and we hope to have you on a lot in the future. And I'm going to ask Miranda, who's an activist with the Palestinian Youth Movement, to share some of the powerful protests that Palestinian Youth Movement led. I just want to briefly say, as I've said in the past, that I've come from a family where on my grandmother's side, 37 people were killed in the gas chambers. And I used to wonder, I used to think about it as a child. How could people be so evil and cruel? Well, now I see very clearly. I'm seeing it's very easy to see that human beings do this for various reasons. It's obviously we need to put a stop to it. Miranda, welcome.
Hi, Joni. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for being with us. Tell us a little bit about you and the Palestinian Youth Movement, and then about the very important civil disobedience that you, PYM, organized a few weeks ago.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here with Reverend Hagler and Dr. Farah. It's great to be here with you guys. And Allah yarhama, Ammo, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry to hear about Alham. And the Palestinian Youth Movement, we are a transnational, independent, grassroots movement of young Palestinians dedicated to the liberation of our homeland and people. And we are here mobilizing our community of young Arab youth, but also our wider basin community, because we understand that we have a special role in diaspora. For the last 75 years, Zionists have attempted to fragment us. They've tried to make us feel like we're not the same as our people back home within the 48 borders or in the West Bank or in Gaza. And they also believe that, with enough time, young people will forget and that we're not going to have a strong attachment to our homeland. But we are here to stand in unity with our people back home to show that we have not forgotten our cause and that we'll continue to do whatever we can to liberate our people in Palestine. And so I think the action that you're talking about is on February 1st. Many organizers across DC shut 5 major entrances into DC in the morning as war criminals were on their way to work. And this is important, because we are living in DC, really in the heart of empire, the belly of the beast. The people who are making these decisions to send billions of dollars in aid to Israel to bomb and genocide our people are just going to work in the city that we live in. And so we have a responsibility to shut it down, to say that there's going to be no business as usual. And so we had activists put themselves in the middle of the road and refuse to leave and shut down 5 entrances into DC from the suburbs. And to be really clear, the reason that we did that is that we have very specific demands. We are calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. We are calling on lifting the siege in Gaza because the people there are starving. They need food, they need water, they need medicine, and they're being completely suffocated. We need freedom for all of our Palestinian prisoners, all of the people who are being tortured, some as young as 12 years old, who are locked up without trial. And we need an end to all U.S. aid to Israel the billions of dollars that are being sent to Israel constantly, while people here don't have healthcare, they don't have public housing, we don't have public education. Another one of our demands is hands off of Yemen. The people of Yemen have taken a strong stance in support of Palestine to try to end the war machine, and they are now suffering at the hands of the US bombing them. And finally, the refunding of UNRWA, the UN agency for Palestinian refugees, that is really the lifeblood for Palestinian refugees, and they provide critical services for us.
Absolutely.
So those are our demands.
Absolutely. And we need...
Miranda, this is Reverend Hagler. I hope somebody from the Palestinian youth can come to the meeting on tomorrow night.
Yes, of course, Reverend Hagler. Yeah, we will be there.
All right, let me know who's to speak.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
Okay, great. Again, you're listening to Heal DC. This is a special show update on the genocide in Gaza and what people are doing right here in DC to stop it. But one part of stopping it is keeping WPFW strong. We have a goal of $650 today, and we need folks to step up to the plate. We have several thank you gifts. Ayanna Gregory's has a package of 3 CDs. I Dream a World, which is a beautiful children's CD. Ballad for My Father, tribute to Dick Gregory. And Mama, this one's for you, for her beautiful Lillian Gregory. Those 3 CDCs can be yours for a pledge of $89.30, or you can just get the children's CD for a pledge of $40. And we are also offering T-shirts, Harriet's Wildest Dreams, for a discounted price of $50. And we have a very special book that Miranda is going to be sharing with us. Before she does that, let me remind people of the numbers: 202-588-9739 or 1-800-222-9739. You can also pledge on Cash App. And Kim Bay, who you can hear every Saturday from 4 to 6, is helping me. And perhaps Kim can jump in and remind people how to make a Cash App pledge. And if
you can pledge via Cash App. You have your telephone in your hand. You just type $WPFW. That's $WPFW. Make sure you indicate that the donation is going to Heal DC, and include your email address. And we are patiently awaiting the first pledge to get us started.
Yes, thank you so much, Kim. The first pledge, who's going to be the first pledge to help stand up and make sure that PFW stands strong for justice and in peace and jazz and putting an end to genocide?
What is your goal?
$650. $650.
Okay, so we can get that in one pledge.
Yes, we can. Someone could donate a sustaining pledge for $30 a month, and that would bring us pretty close. But I want to ask Miranda to talk briefly about the book that she has donated for us. It's written by a Palestinian author. I believe it's a novel. So Miranda, tell us briefly a little bit about this book.
Yes, so the book is called Trinity of Fundamentals. It's written by a Palestinian author named Wissam Rafidi. He was a political prisoner held by the Zionists in captivity for years as a result of trying to organize and liberate Palestine. While he was in prison, he wrote a novel about his experiences working for Palestine. And he wanted to be able to release his works, but the Zionists were trying to steal everything that he was writing from inside the prison. So what he actually did was he wrote his novel in very, very small text on tiny pieces of paper. He put that in little pill capsules. When people came to visit him in the prison, he gave people the pill capsules. They swallowed them. When they left, they would release them, open the pill capsules, and then transcribe every single thing he wrote. And little by little, that is how he was able to release his entire novel, Trinity of Fundamentals, from prison. Mm. And so I think that just goes to show the resilience of Palestinians. We will not be stopped. And yes, especially our prisoners, even though they're put in captivity, they're put in solitary confinement to try to get them to stop advocating for our cause, they will find a way. And so over the last 2 years, the Palestinian Youth Movement has been working with him to translate that book from Arabic into English, and it is now available for purchase. It's called Trinity of Fundamentals. It's being published by 1804 Books. You can buy it online.
No, we're not. We're really asking people to make a pledge for this book, Miranda.
Oh, yeah, please.
We cannot continue. We need to make sure our wonderful staff, their tiny staff, such as Magic Mike, gets paid. We have to pay a few people here to keep this radio station on. We don't even have heat in the building now, but we need to keep the lights on and electricity on. Make sure the bathroom is working. Please, folks, somebody pledge $50 for this special book that has just come out. Again, 202-588-9739. We just have 3 copies, and you can be one of the first people to pledge. But we're going to move on to introduce another fabulous activist guest that we have on today, and that is Andrew Kadi. And he is one of the co-founders of an organization called the DC Coalition for Ceasefire Now. And he also has a Palestinian roots. Welcome, Andrew.
Morning, Joni. Thank you for having us on, all of us. And it is really a pleasure to be on with some of these wonderful people here.
Yes, including you. And I know I first heard about DC Coalition for Ceasefire Now. It was maybe a month ago already when you organized a press conference in front of the Wilson Building to try to demand and push the DC City Council to take a stand for ceasefire now. But before we go into any more, tell us a little bit about you and what inspired you to help to found this organization, DC Coalition for Ceasefire Now.
Sure. I mean, in terms of background, I'm Palestinian and Egyptian. My family live across all of historic Palestine, so that includes what's now Israel. That means that they are Palestinian citizens of Israel. For folks who don't know or aren't familiar, 1 in 5 Israeli citizens are actually Palestinians, but don't live equally under the law. So they live under almost like a Jim Crow-like set of laws that prevent them from buying land in most of the country, prevent them from being able to rent now, even in most of the country. So over 80% of the country is allowed to have admissions committees under the Israeli law, which facilitates determining whether someone is a quote unquote social fit for the area that they're moving into. Palestinians within Israel cannot marry whoever they want. And they are underfunded in services despite paying the same amount in taxes. And by and large are discriminated against by over 60 laws that if folks are interested in reading, they could find at the Adala, the Legal Center for Minority Rights. That is where most of my family are. Some of my family live in Jerusalem, and I've got extended family in Gaza. I will say that something I'd like to mention. Philip spoke earlier of his relative, Ilham Farah. And I just want to say, for those of us living in the diaspora as Palestinians, we are watching this unfold and we really see ourselves in those who are being killed on a daily basis. And one of the ones that really hit me hard was Philip's relative, Ilham Farah, in particular, because she actually was a music teacher. She was somebody that, in all of the descriptions I read from her relatives, really embodied the spirit that my mother embodied. My mother passed away in 2020. And, reading about her death really re-triggered my grief.
Yes.
And I think that's something that we sometimes forget, that people are watching. And I know Black folks in America know what that feels like, watching something unfold like that and seeing yourself in somebody and re-experiencing that. And that's another dimension that really doesn't get spoken about much, that we are all collectively grieving over and over again as we read the stories of these families that are being killed one after another with our tax dollars and our weapons.
Absolutely. And you shared with me, Andrew, and I've heard also that it's quite disturbing when you hear the responses of some of the D.C. City Council people, including the chair, and I'll say his name, Phil Mendelson. It's just outrageous. I've heard that he said to people privately, please don't talk to him about it. It's too controversial. But somehow it's not controversial to him that you can kill and slaughter 30,000 people. But anyway, I think it's particularly important that the capital of this so-called nation, which it is, needs to take a stand. And we need to, and Dr. Graylan Hagler and others, that's why it's so important to do more to demand that they can't get away with murder. We're letting them get away with a genocide. So,
absolutely,
Andrew, tell if you want to tell any of the stories about.
I could definitely, absolutely. I could talk a little bit about. So we formed this coalition out of folks coming from a variety of organizations, essentially. After we saw that not only did most council members not really speak out about Palestinian civilians being killed in those first couple of weeks after having given statements regarding the October 7th attack, but beyond that, we saw that the Wilson building was lit up in the colors of the Israeli flag. That's something that went on for nearly 40 days. We saw that the Israeli government, we subsequently found out, was brought in for a briefing with council. And that's the Israeli government came in for a briefing before the council heard from any constituents. I mean, if when you think about a ceasefire impacts everyone, right? Including Jewish Israelis. They didn't hear from Jewish Israelis. They didn't hear from Palestinian residents of the district. They heard from the Israeli government. And I think that that's very telling in terms of how this issue is being pushed and how it's being treated. Once we learned, I think, about the Israeli government briefing, and then we realized, in the context of the mayor who's taken promotional trips to Israel as recently as 2019, that the MPD continues its trainings with the Israeli police and military. We felt the need to sort of mobilize and start to gather the voices of residents of the district in opposition to what is going on, and to start to put some pressure on the council to make the right decision to introduce a ceasefire resolution, to call for a ceasefire. At minimum, initially, one of the demands was to have a briefing and hear from residents of the district who are impacted, which they did do. And for folks who are interested in taking action or want to know how they can plug into this, or either to sign the letter or take action, the URL for that is, for folks who know bit.ly, it's bit.ly/DC ceasefire toolkit, all lowercase. Okay. So that's bit.ly DC ceasefire toolkit. And that's got all the different ways that you can plug into this particular campaign. And again, I want to honor all the sort of organizing that's being done beyond this campaign, including by PYM, including Rev Graylan Hagler, including PCAP, Palestinian Christian Alliance for Peace.
Yes, and I think that's, again, why it's so important people come out tomorrow night, 7 p.m., because we have to do more. Everyone's trying, people are trying, but we have to do more. I, for one, would like to see some picketing in front of these, especially perhaps the council chair's home. We can't allow people to get away with slaughter and genocide. Maybe we're just about out of time, but Andrew, for this segment. But Andrew, if you could just mention, there are city council people who have stood up, and of course they're being attacked. I don't know if you want to mention.
Sure. I mean, we've heard, I think Council Member Janice Lewis George and Council Member Zach Parker both, I believe, called for ceasefire on social media with lengthy statements. And it's clear that as council members, they still haven't introduced a ceasefire resolution. No one has, and I think a large part of that is that fear of being attacked. We've heard a lot about a local lobby and the pressure that they're feeling. Not just those two, but more broadly, we've heard that from 4 council members or 5 council members now. And we also have some council members who historically have been really progressive. For folks who have seen probably Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, who's considered a progressive. I would argue all of her votes have been that way. and she has come out and said some really weird things regarding this issue. So
well, that doesn't surprise me, frankly. But there was, unless I'm mistaken, but I believe the one council member that you told me about was there was a movement to try to get him out of the council. If that's correct.
That's right. Yeah, we had a constituents
just 30 seconds, 10 seconds for that. Is that true?
Sure. We had a constituents report back a positive meeting with a council member Charles Allen, but there is an effort to get Charles Allen.
Okay, so that's very important for listeners to know. There's an organized effort. I believe someone told me it was by the Republicans in the federal arena, trying to get Charles Allen out of the city council. Because he's standing up against genocide. So, listeners, that's why we need. I'm sure many of my guests hear this as well. I hear so many people who tell me they're not watching, they're not listening to the news because it's too upsetting. That's why WPFW is so important. We need to keep WPFW strong. We don't have any pledges yet, folks, and so again. PFW can't be around without your support. We don't get money from the gun manufacturers. We don't get money from the pharmaceutical companies. We don't get money from the people who do us harm. We are trying to tell you the truth, and that's why we don't get a lot of support from the capitalist system, frankly. We need your support. 202-588-9739, 1-800-222-9739. We also bring you jazz and music and positive things, but we also need to be telling the truth about what's going on in this nation of ours. We have wonderful thank you gifts, including Ayanna Gregory's 3 beautiful CDs for a pledge of $89.30. We have this powerful Palestinian book for a pledge of $50. We have a lot of other thank you gifts as well. But please, folks, because, things happen in this country. We are not guaranteed that PFW is going to be around. We need your
Joni,
help.
can you let them know they can pledge online as well in the privacy of their home? WPFWFM.org. There's a donate now button, upper left-hand corner. Click on that. Make sure To Heal DC is showing in the drop-down menu and pledge away.
Absolutely. And, perhaps some of the organizations that are working to mobilize people to stand up against the genocide can also make a pledge. We do have a number of shows that do speak about this throughout the week, but we need your support, folks. We need your support. At least be the first. I've been on the air for many years. We usually always get pledges in. I know it's a rough time for some people, but please, folks, make a stand in support of the people in Palestine. Make a support of the people in Gaza and the people in our community who are working to make a difference. 202-588-9739, 1-800-222-9739. And Phil Farah, you say you've often pledged on PFW, and so we hope others listening who have pledged before will pledge now. We know it's a difficult time for some folks, but we need your support. In a moment, but anyway, I'm going to continue to keep my head up because I know what we're doing here at the station is right, and it needs to be shared, what the truth of what's going on. In a moment, we're going to be hearing from Rabbi Alissa Wise, who will be talking about a pilgrimage from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. They're coming into town Wednesday, and I believe that is Rabbi Wise, who is joining us now. And let me just welcome her a little bit more. Rabbi Wise is one of the lead organizers for Rabbis for Ceasefire. And we remember we talked about when you first started, I think it was early in January, Rabbis for Ceasefire. She was also the interim co-director of Jewish Voice for Peace and helped to make it grow from 6 chapters to now over 60. She supported the Presbyterian Church USA's divestment from Israel occupation. And she's also with an organization that those of us who are from New York City have heard of, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. So with that said, welcome, Rabbi Wise.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And thank you for being with us. We again hope to have you on again for a longer segment. But tell us about this pilgrimage. You've been marching. Have you been part of the marchers from Philadelphia? Yeah. And you're landing in D.C. Wednesday. How's the marching been?
Oh, it's been so wonderful. We've done 70 miles together so far. Today we're going from Joppa, Maryland to Baltimore. Tonight we actually have a big rally at Payne Memorial AME Church in Baltimore with a bunch of multi-faith organizations. So we're going to have a big multi-faith prayer service tonight in Baltimore. So if there's any listeners who want to join us at Payne Memorial AME Church tonight, there's going to be a multi-faith prayer service at 7 p.m. But it's been a beautiful experience. You know, I've never done a pilgrimage, but you know, this effort was initiated by Faith for Black Lives and the National Council of Churches, who has been organizing all the back end. And a lot of the leaders of this march have actually done this multiple times. One of them did a 700-mile march for the Voting Rights Act from Atlanta to DC. So, you know, it's interesting to be integrated into the spiritual practice of pilgrimage. And, you know, what we're seeing on the walk is that people are, you know, coming from all over, right? There's a college student who found the email in her spam box and was inspired to come. She got it from the Fellowship of Reconciliation email list all the way from Humboldt County, California, and jumped on a plane to walk the entire 7 days. There was somebody who encountered us along the route and joined us for 2 days walking, right? And people are coming across faith, across race, across age. And we're building relationships. Everybody's at the end is exchanging numbers to stay in touch, right? It's because you have these long hours to kind of share each other's stories, hear what brought them to the pilgrimage. And, you know, as we're walking down what are, you know, the strip malls and mundane streets, we're bringing a kind of spiritual and moral power to it. And as we pass people on the street, we're getting lots of supportive honks from trucks and from passersby. And, you know, it's been a really special experience, you know, and we've coming together with this, you know, purpose of demanding President Biden and the Congress act for ceasefire, you know, and the whole thing was put together in just over 3 weeks, which a lot of marches like this take a year to plan, right?
Well, not these days. Not these days.
There is an urgency to it, you know, so it's kind of been emergent. And, you know, one day
I'm sorry, Rabbi, I want you to tell people, because we in Washington, D.C. sometimes are the last to know about these national marches. So it's very important. We have millions of people who live in this area who are very concerned. So let's just make sure we clearly say what's happening, at what time, and where.
Yes. Okay. So tomorrow we still have another day walking through Maryland and parts of, and through Maryland tomorrow. And then Wednesday morning is our final leg. We're going to be marching into DC. We're going to be finding ourselves once we get to DC at 1 p.m. at Lafayette Park. So everyone, we really it would be wonderful if our pilgrims were greeted by a huge crowd of supporters when we got there to Lafayette Park.
And of course, I'm sorry, we know that the only way to have thousands of people from the DC area there, we need to make sure that people know about it. And I must say, I haven't heard much about it yet, but that, folks, if you're listening, we know how these rallies are important. And I just want to ask Reverend Hagler to, because I didn't ask him this before, but in general, and you mentioned the faith community. I just want Reverend Hagler to share a little bit about his organization, Faith Strategies, and how many, because I meet them, the powerful, mostly black ministers who are very active in the Ceasefire Now movement. Can you just share that with us, Reverend Hagler?
Sure. Faith Strategies consists of about 80 clergy from many different walks of life, some in the church, some of them doing community ministry, but people who are engaged on the social justice component. One of the things that the clergy continue to raise an issue, and that is that all of these national movements tend to ignore locally DC. And that's a problem. Because let me remind you a little history. 1984, this is 2024. 1984, Walter Fauntroy, Randall Robinson, Mary Berry sat in at the South African Embassy and kicked off the Free South Africa movement in the U.S. That emanated from D.C. because D.C. is a fishbowl, and we exist as clergy in this fishbowl all the time. And we deal with local issues which have national impact. So it's important that folks make a connection continually with local clergy and organizations, because we're here 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and can make an impact. And that's important. Also, I think that the issues become, yes, we support the movements that are bringing social change and are speaking to justice. We support them. We support the march that's coming from Philadelphia. We support all of these different movements. But we're asking that folks begin to sharpen their strategy. Sharpen their strategy by realizing that there is a vital connection that should be made and can be made in Washington, D.C.
Yes, and I'm sure Rabbi Wise is doing what she can do, and perhaps Phil, you may want to jump in, but we also have some very good news about our pledges. Maybe let's do that real quick, and then I'm going to ask Phil Farah to make a comment about the pilgrimage coming in on Wednesday. And we want folks to tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell yourselves that you can make it there. Kim, help us announce some of the I hear what we in these few moments we went over our goals. So tell us.
You're doing exceptionally well. We have quite a few people to thank. Thank you, Pamela Rogers out of Capitol Heights, Maryland. Thank you for your very generous credit card pledge. Michelle Tingling Clemens out of
Michelle
Washington.
is the original host of this show, and we paid tribute to her husband, who's now an ancestor, but I know Rick Tingling Clemens is helping out as well.
And she is challenging all New Yorkers and other immigrants. Phil Portlock out of...
Hey, Phil! Oh, that is great. A long-time activist.
Very generous pledge. Thank you, Phil. And Reverend Graylan Hagler, thank you for your very, very generous pledge. Bridget out of Washington, D.C. She secured the Harriet's Wildest Dreams t-shirt. She says, stay strong. She wants to challenge all UCC church members to donate. Nancy out of Silver Spring, thank you for your generous pledge. And Terry out of Bowie, Maryland, web credit card pledge.
Wow, thank you. And I must say, a lot of those are my people, my friends. So thank you, friends. But actually, all listeners of PFW are friends as well. So you can keep making those pledges, 202-588-9739 or 1-800-222-9739. And I don't know if anyone's pledged for that Palestinian book that's available for $50. But let me, because we're going to be soon running out of time, but Phil Farah, tell us what you have to say about the rally that's going to be taking place as this pilgrimage for peace comes into Washington, D.C. And the rally, I believe, is being called for 1 p.m. Wednesday at the White House.
Yeah, first, let me start by giving the website for the pilgrimage. It's pilgrimageforpeace.org. Easy. Pilgrimageforpeace.org, and you can follow the progress of the pilgrims. And yeah, please, I urge folks to attend 1 o'clock on Wednesday at the White House. There'll be a vigil. And the role of the faith community is extremely important. My group, actually, the Palestinian Christian Alliance for Peace, focuses on faith communities. And, in 2014, I believe, yes, the Presbyterian Church USA voted to, in their conference, I think it's a biannual conference, if I'm not mistaken. They voted to divest and from companies that profit from the occupation and boycott products made in the illegal Israeli settlements. And it was front page news in the New York Times. And since then, many of the mainline Protestant denominations have also passed divestment resolutions, divesting church pension funds from companies that profit from the occupation, like Caterpillar. You see the horrible Caterpillar bulldozers as very much an essential part of the destruction that is being visited on Gaza.
And I'm sorry, we're almost out of time. I want to make sure that Rabbi Wise makes a final statement, as well as a few of our other guests. So, Rabbi Wise, you're coming Wednesday. What would you like to share with our listeners to make sure they come?
Yes. Well, I think that right now, when we gather, there'll be a chance for multi-faith public worship in Lafayette Park. And, it's really important that, given the crisis that's looming in Rafah, we have to bring all of our moral and spiritual and political power to demand this ceasefire now. The moment couldn't be more urgent. So, I know everybody's doing all they can, and we want to encourage you to come and be part of this historic multi-faith effort, and ensure that our prayers and our demands for ceasefire are heard in the White House. So please join us, 1 p.m. Lafayette Park.
Yes, and thank you so much, Rabbi Wise. Maybe I'll get a chance to meet you. But I'm also going to meet, hopefully, a lot of the listeners tomorrow night. And we're just about out of time, but I want to ask Reverend Hagler to make his final invitation and encouragement to come out tomorrow night to Plymouth Congregational Church for this very important mobilization. That's going to be more than talking. There will be singing, and we're going to hear Lucy Murphy take us out in a moment. But Reverend Hagler, your final.
Yeah, join us tomorrow at Tuesday, Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ, 5301 North Capitol Street, Northeast, Washington, D.C. And we're going to be planning direct action to elevate the urgency and the importance of being able to stand up and resist genocide. And to basically, we have to call it for what it is. It is genocide.
Yes.
It is an attempt to totally annihilate the Palestinian population. And we need to call it for what it is. And folks need to understand that this has been going on for more than 75 years. And so we need to name it. We need to call it out. We need to challenge folks. Absolutely. Be with us tomorrow at Plymouth, 7 p.m.
Absolutely. We need to know, as Dr. King said, the urgency of now. I want to thank our fabulous guest, Phil Farah, with the Christian Alliance for Palestinian Peace, as well as Miranda with the Palestinian Youth Movement, and Andrew with the DC Coalition of Ceasefire Now. Rabbi
And Joni,
was.
can you thank Andrew for his pledge? He made a Cash App pledge.
Wow. Okay. So we definitely made over the goal. You want to just summarize, Kim, before we go out with Lucy Murphy's powerful song?
Okay, once again, Andrew, thank you so very much. Terry out of Bowie, Maryland, Nancy, Silver Spring, Maryland, Bridget, Washington, D.C., Reverend Graylan Hagler, Washington, D.C., Phil Portlock,
Yay,
and Michelle Tingling Clemens, and Pamela Rogers. Thank you so very much. Keep the pledges coming in. And 202-588-9739.
And we're going out with Lucy Murphy, who you can hear tomorrow night if you come to Plymouth Congregational Church, and you will hear her singing this song with her whole entire choir from the Black Workers Center.
If you think of the Middle East in this modern time, you can't help but say the word Palestine. People there have lost their land. Some have lost their home. They live in other countries. Their freedom almost gone. Palestine needs her freedom. Palestine needs our love. Palestine needs her freedom. Palestine needs our love. There seems to be no answer to give us the reason why people cannot live, so no one has to die. We've got to take a stand for freedom, take a stand for truth, take a stand for justice. That's what we've got to do, 'cause Palestine needs her freedom. Palestine needs our love. Palestine needs her freedom. Palestine needs our love. People there are rich. People there are poor. Some have education. So what are they fighting for? Fighting for their freedom, fighting for their land, fighting for their children. Let's help them take a stand.